Imagine walking across a quiet hill in southeastern Turkey. At first glance, there's nothing unusual about it. Just dry grass, loose stones, and miles of empty land. But hidden beneath that hill was a discovery so extraordinary that it forced archaeologists to question one of the oldest stories ever told about human civilization. Because buried underground was a temple older than the Egyptian pyramids, older than Stonehenge, and so old that, according to history, the people who built it shouldn't have been capable of building anything like it. Its name is Göbekli Tepe. And even today, scientists are still trying to answer one simple question. Who built it? For decades, the history of civilization seemed straightforward. First, humans lived as hunter-gatherers. They moved from place to place, hunting animals and gathering plants just to survive. Then, around 10,000 years ago, people began farming. Food became more reliable. Villages appeared. Those villages grew into cities. And only then did humans have enough time, workers, and organization to build massive temples and monuments. It was a timeline taught in classrooms around the world. Hunter-gatherers, then farming, then civilization, then temples. Simple, or at least, that's what everyone believed. Until one discovery changed everything. For centuries, local farmers had worked the land around a small hill in southeastern Turkey. Occasionally, strange carved stones would appear in their fields. Most people ignored them. Some believed they were part of an old cemetery. In the 1960s, archaeologists briefly surveyed the site. After a quick inspection, they reached the same conclusion: nothing particularly important. And so, the hill was forgotten for nearly 30 years. Then, in 1994, a German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt visited the site. The moment he saw the stones, he knew something wasn't right. These weren't ordinary gravestones. They were carefully shaped limestone pillars, massive ones. Schmidt later said he had two choices: either leave the site or spend the rest of his life excavating it. He chose to stay. It turned out to be one of archaeology's greatest decisions. As excavations began, enormous stone pillars emerged from the ground. Some stood over 5 meters tall. Others weighed nearly 20 tons. Each had been carefully carved with images of foxes, snakes, wild boars, birds, and other animals that once roamed the region. At first, archaeologists assumed the site was several thousand years old. But when the dating results came back, everything changed. Göbekli Tepe wasn't built 4,000 years ago, or even 6,000. It was built around 9600 BCE, more than 11,000 years ago, nearly 7,000 years older than the Great Pyramid of Giza, older than writing, older than metal tools, older than the wheel. And that's when the real mystery began. Because if the dating was correct, the people who built Göbekli Tepe weren't supposed to have cities. They weren't supposed to have advanced engineering. In fact, they weren't even supposed to be farmers. So how did a society of hunter-gatherers create one of the world's oldest known monumental structures? The deeper archaeologists dug, the stranger the answers became. If Göbekli Tepe had simply been an ancient village, it would already have been one of the greatest archaeological discoveries in history. But that's not what archaeologists found. As they continued excavating, they realized these weren't ordinary buildings. They were massive stone circles. At the center of each one stood two enormous T-shaped pillars. Surrounding them were even more towering pillars, carefully arranged in rings, and every single one had been carved with incredible detail. Foxes, snakes, wild boars, vultures, lions, scorpions. The carvings weren't rough scratches made by primitive tools. They were deliberate, precise, almost artistic. Some pillars even had carved arms and hands running down their sides. It looked as though the stones themselves represented human figures. Whoever built this place wasn't simply stacking rocks. They were creating something with meaning. But what that meaning was, no one knows. Then archaeologists noticed something even stranger. There were almost no houses, no streets, no signs of a large permanent settlement surrounding the oldest parts of the site. That made almost no sense. Throughout history, great temples were usually built inside thriving cities. People settled down, they farmed, they built homes, and eventually, they constructed places of worship. But Göbekli Tepe seemed to reverse that order completely. Instead of a city with a temple, it appeared to be a temple without a city. For the first time, some archaeologists asked an extraordinary question. What if thousands of hunter-gatherers traveled here from different regions, not to live, but to gather? Perhaps this wasn't a town at all. Perhaps it was a meeting place, a sacred place where people came together for ceremonies, rituals, or celebrations long before cities even existed. If that idea is true, then humans may have been organizing massive communities thousands of years earlier than anyone had imagined. But organizing people is one thing. Building Göbekli Tepe is another. Some of the largest pillars weigh between 10 and 20 tons. That's about the weight of a modern truck. Today, we'd use cranes, steel cables, and heavy machinery to move stones that size. 11,000 years ago, none of that existed. There were no metal tools, no wheels, no horses or oxen pulling heavy carts. The builders shaped solid limestone using nothing more than stone tools. Then they somehow transported these enormous blocks from nearby quarries, raised them upright, and positioned them with remarkable precision. Exactly how they accomplished this is still debated today. Most researchers believe hundreds of people worked together using ropes, wooden sledges, and carefully planned teamwork. Whatever method they used, it required planning, leadership, skill, and cooperation on a scale that historians once believed was impossible for hunter-gatherers. But just when archaeologists thought they had uncovered the greatest mystery of the site, they found something even more unbelievable. The people who built Göbekli Tepe didn't abandon it. They buried it. At first, archaeologists assumed the temple had simply been buried by nature. After all, 11,000 years is a very long time. Wind carries dust. Rain washes down hillsides. Earth slowly builds up over centuries. It seemed like the most logical explanation, but the deeper they dug, the less that theory made sense. The spaces between the giant stone pillars weren't filled with layers of natural soil. Instead, they were packed with limestone rubble, broken stone tools, animal bones, and countless other materials that had clearly been placed there by people. This wasn't the work of nature. Someone had deliberately buried the entire monument. Think about that for a moment. A group of people spent years, perhaps even generations, building one of the most remarkable structures of the ancient world, only to carefully hide it beneath thousands of tons of earth. Why? No one knows. Some archaeologists believe the site had fulfilled its purpose. Others think new traditions replaced the old ones. And some argue that burying the temple may have been part of a ritual itself. But no theory has been proven. Ironically, that decision may be the reason Göbekli Tepe survived. Most ancient buildings slowly disappear. Rain erodes them. Earthquakes destroy them. People reuse the stones to build something new. But Göbekli Tepe was sealed beneath the ground. like a time capsule waiting thousands of years to be opened. When archaeologists uncovered the pillars, many of the carvings were still astonishingly well preserved. The foxes, the snakes, the birds, even tiny details that should have vanished long ago. It was almost as if the builders wanted someone in the distant future to discover their work. But the mysteries didn't stop there. One question continued to puzzle researchers. Why were so many animals carved into the stones? Unlike later civilizations, the people of Göbekli Tepe left behind no writing, no names, no stories, only symbols. Some researchers think the animals represented powerful spirits or sacred beliefs. Others believe they reflected the dangerous wildlife surrounding the people who gathered there. A few have even suggested the carvings may have marked seasons, important events, or shared myths passed down through generations. The truth is, no one can say for certain. Without written records, the stones remain silent. And perhaps the most exciting part of this mystery is that we've barely scratched the surface. Although Göbekli Tepe has been studied for decades, only a small portion of the site has actually been excavated. Researchers believe much more still lies hidden beneath the hill. More stone circles, more carvings, maybe even the clue that finally explains why this place was built in the first place. Every year, the hill gives up another small piece of its story, and every discovery raises even more questions than it answers. It's tempting to say that Göbekli Tepe proved everything we know about history is wrong. But that's not what happened. Instead, it reminded us that history is always changing. Every new discovery adds another piece to a puzzle that's far from complete. Before Göbekli Tepe, many archaeologists believed that farming came first. People settled down, built villages, and only then created monuments and temples. But Göbekli Tepe suggested something different. Perhaps large groups of people were already capable of organizing incredible projects long before permanent cities existed. Maybe the desire to gather, to celebrate, or to share common beliefs helped bring people together in ways we never imagined. It's an idea that continues to be debated today. And that's what makes this place so remarkable. It doesn't just give us answers, it forces us to ask better questions. Think about how little we actually know about the people who built it. They left behind no written language, no names, no kings, no records of what they believed. Almost everything we've learned comes from stone. Every carved pillar, every animal, every tool buried beneath the ground is another clue left behind by people who lived nearly 12,000 years ago. And yet, even after decades of research, the greatest mystery remains. Who were they? What brought them here? And why did they build something so extraordinary? Perhaps we'll never know. But maybe that's what makes Göbekli Tepe so fascinating. In a world where satellites can map entire continents and telescopes can look billions of light-years into space, one of humanity's greatest mysteries is still buried beneath a quiet hill in Turkey, waiting patiently for the next discovery. Because history isn't a finished story. Every excavation, every artifact, every forgotten ruin has the power to change what we think we know. And somewhere, beneath another hill, another desert, or another forgotten landscape, the next chapter of human history may already be waiting to be uncovered. So the next time someone tells you we know exactly how civilization began, remember Göbekli Tepe, the temple that wasn't supposed to exist, and the ancient builders who are still rewriting history 11,000 years later. Thanks for watching.